Saturday mornings. But we've got Aaron on the phone from Camden, New Jersey. How are you?
Hey, how are you doing today?
I guess you can't remain anonymous if we say your name and where you're at.
Yeah. Hey, I'm 16 years old. I'm the son of a pastor. We're church planting. We've moved from Philadelphia to New Jersey a couple times actually. But
what kind of pastor?
What's your question? I couldn't hear you.
What kind of pastor?
I don't understand.
Like denomination? Is he
we're Presbyterian.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry, my question was. Oh yeah. So I'm coming into this conversation. I'm stating that I don't believe that I cannot prove the existence of God.
Okay.
Okay.
Because he's not something that can be observed physically. I can't give any proof because, well, yes. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, by proof, do you mean that you can't absolutely prove it, or do you mean that it's not something?
I can't test him physically in the natural world.
Okay. Do you believe that there's any way? So, are you relying entirely on faith, or do you believe? I mean, I'm curious as to why anybody would believe something without a rational justification.
Okay, yeah. So, well, yeah, that's what our belief is based on faith.
Okay.
Okay, let me ask you, I have a question for you. Do you believe that your God has any effect on the natural world at all?
Of course.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
then you can test it.
I can't test the existence of God.
If you believe
you
your
can
God,
test the effects.
Yeah, if you believe your God has an effect on the natural world, you can test that.
And by the way, for most people, and granted, if you're saying that you believe only based on faith, then it doesn't matter whether you think your God affects reality. But for most people that believe, they're running around claiming to be little God detectors all the time. God answers their prayers. God performs miracles. God interjects himself in reality in ways that they claim to be able to test, or to detect anyway.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I digress a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, sure.
You had a question for us, so yeah, I want to make sure you get your question.
Well, I just wanted to know where your original position is for creation, because I haven't been able to pinpoint that. Because I've been watching your show for about a month now on YouTube, and for 90% of the people who call in are idiots. They just don't know how to. They don't know how to argue the debate or anything. They don't know how to present any valid evidence.
Okay, so, well, name calling aside.
Yes, ad hominem.
Well, that's not an ad hominem yet, but so what do you mean by creation?
How are we here?
Okay. How did the first living thing arise, or how did we...
Yes.
Okay. Well, the answer right now is we don't know for sure. There are some interesting ideas. There's a field called abiogenesis that talks about, how living things arose. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but if not, that would be an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, one of the reasons why that Jen had asked what you mean by creation is because creation is a bit of a cheat, depending on what you're talking about. So if you're referring to the universe, for example, and calling it creation, then it's a bit of a cheat because you're presuming that it's something that was created or had a creator.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm not completely sure what you're asking, but I'll give you my quick 30-second breakdown. Big Bang cosmology is the best current model we have for the origins of the universe, although we don't understand it entirely, and we could be wrong. Evolution explains the diversity of life after the beginnings of life. It is it is a theory, the theory by natural selection, that explains the facts of evolution. So there's, There's no scientific dispute on whether or not evolution actually occurs. When it comes to the origins of life, as Jen said, we don't know. And some of us aren't willing to pretend that we do know by claiming there was a God involved.
All right, well, surely you do believe that there has to be something eternal.
I don't
know.
I don't know why you would say that. I mean, we don't have any evidence that supports that.
Well, I'm saying that because, so if I say there's a God, right?
Okay.
Well, you'll say, if I say God created the universe, well, you'll say, who created God?
No, actually I wouldn't, because who created presumes that we're talking about a who. See, who...
Okay, yeah. So
but I'm fine with you saying God created the universe and God didn't need to be created. What I'm wondering is why on earth you think that you need to take that extra step, because there's a point at which we can't investigate any further back currently, and so it's a mystery. And what you're attempting to do is claim that you've answered this mystery by something that you can't explain or describe, can't prove exists, and I don't see how that's a useful... I mean, we tend to explain things in terms of other things we understand, and so if you try to solve the biggest mystery in the universe, is why does anything exist, by appealing to a bigger mystery, how is that any different from saying that universe-creating pixies who didn't need a creator started the universe?
Well, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just getting at for anybody to believe that we are here right now, we have to believe in an eternal being, or...
No, we don't.
We don't. And in fact,
for instance,
I think that's an unjustified belief.
I mean, I believe I'm here right now, and I don't believe in an eternal someone.
So how did we get here then?
I don't know.
We may never know. But that doesn't mean we're justified in plugging, something like a God in there. I mean, you said earlier that...
No, even a cell could be eternal. It always had to be there for it to develop into where we are now.
That actually doesn't help your case.
I don't know what you mean, because cells most definitely... I'm not aware of any eternal cells or any eternal anything, and all the evidence we have for cells shows that they're not eternal.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I guess I'm confusing you guys a little bit, but let me ask.
Well, what makes you think cells are eternal?
No, for something to be... So if, for instance, if you believe in the Big Bang Theory, well, something had to be eternally there.
No, something just had to be there before under some models.
Yeah.
Well, what was before that?
We don't know.
And that may not even be a valid question.
Yeah, before the Big Bang, if time actually began with that, may not be a valid question.
Okay. Well, then we can't.
What's north of the North Pole?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, then we can't agree on that idea.
We can't agree on the fact that North Pole is as north as you can get, and there's nothing north of the North Pole?
There's the universe. I guess that's my vague answer to that.
Yeah, that's you kind of jumped the shark there, because it's north is a point of which there's nothing north of. That's the start. Everything is south of the North Pole. It's not like we expand north to the solar system and say that the moon is occasionally north of the North Pole. That's just not the way north works.
All right. So, I have another idea.
Well, I have a question for you, because at the beginning of the call you said that we can't test God in the natural world, but then you claim that God does have effects on the natural world. So those are contradictory claims. So my question to you is, if you believe that the universe and everything in it came into existence as a result of some God, what evidence causes you to think that? What piece of evidence points to a God?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question, I guess. And like I said, it's faith, again, that we have.
Sure.
Okay. But that's
Yes,
not
so,
evidence.
I can't argue against people's personal revelations, and I can't argue against a claim that we just have to believe it on faith. All I can say is that I see no good reason to take anything on faith. Faith is the excuse people give when they don't have a good reason, because if you have a good reason, you don't have to appeal to faith. And as long as faith can be used to equally justify competing claims, I don't know why anybody would want to make an appeal to it as if it's a virtue. It's not a virtue. It's vice. It's gullibility.
All right. Okay. So I cannot give any evidence
Okay.
on how God. But
Okay.
here's what I'm going to ask.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm trying to organize my thoughts a little bit. So why wouldn't you guys want to believe in God?
It's not that I don't want to believe in God. It's that I don't believe in God.
And which God?
Yeah, which God?
You know? I
The
mean,
God of the Bible.
okay.
Okay. It's
So
not.
why wouldn't you want to believe in a being that loves you and that cares for you?
I don't
and
see that
offers
that's,
you-
first of all, I don't see that that's the character of the God of the Bible.
Yeah.
Why not?
Have you read the Bible?
Yes, I have, and you'll say that he's a malicious God, and
Yes.
Yes.
he condones slavery and
Yes.
such things.
Yes.
Do you think that that's not true?
That is not true.
So you
Where in
haven't
the
read
Bible does it, where in the Bible does it say that he will relieve suffering?
You said that it wasn't true that he condoned slavery, so I'd like, have you not read Exodus 21 or Leviticus 25?
21:16?
The whole verse, not just cherry picking, the whole verse.
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole chapter.
Is that what you're getting at?
So, right there, explicitly, the Bible condones slavery and portrays it as the Word of God. So now either the Bible is wrong, or God was wrong, or you're wrong.
About slavery. Just that one little topic.
Well, I'm assuming you think slavery is immoral.
Well, where does your morality come from?
So you don't think slavery is immoral? You don't think it's immoral to own another human being as property?
Oh, it definitely is.
How did you determine that?
Yeah, you surely didn't get that from the Bible.
I mean, the Bible says the exact opposite. So you're not getting your morality from the Bible.
Well, that's based on your eisegesis.
No, it's based on
No.
the actual text. The Bible says the exact opposite of that.
Can you give me an example, or can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it
It's-
specifically says that slaves are your property and you can pass them on to your children. It also says in Exodus 21 begins with talking about Hebrew slaves, and that if they come and work for you, you have to let them go after 6 years, unless you give them a wife and they decide that they want to stay, in which case you drive an awl through their ear, and they are now your property forever. By the way, that's the rule for Hebrew slaves. For other slaves, they're your property to begin with, and there are different rules for women than there are for men. But that's all kind of curious that you don't seem to know this, and yet you've come to the conclusion that slavery is immoral, and you don't seem to think that the Bible condones slavery when it's explicit. I mean, you would think if there was a good and wise God that cared about human beings, that amongst those, first 10 commandments, there might be one that says, thou shalt not own another human being as property. But it doesn't say that. Instead, it says the exact opposite, and you've come to a conclusion that disagrees with the Bible. So I'm wondering what you think is right and why.
Well, from what I've learned from my Christian school, I go to a Christian school in Haddonfield. But what I've learned about this topic, and I don't know much about slavery in the Bible at all. But
I got a video up on my private YouTube channel, covers it in great detail, verses and all.
Yeah, I was going to say, you should probably fix that. Because,
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to run around saying the Bible doesn't condone slavery, and then after we point out that it does, you're going to say, well, I don't really know that much about slavery in the Bible. Well, you didn't have to tell us that. We'd already figured that part out.
No, but what I've learned about it is that slavery, in a few verses in the Bible, that it applied to men who were in poverty, so they would be sold into slavery, because as a slave, you'll be able to thrive.
Really?
Under a master. Yes.
Okay, and so somebody has sold you a ridiculous bill of goods This is the excuse that theists, Christians in particular, often make when they're confronted with the fact that their book is patently immoral. First of all, it's absolutely absurd to try to claim that the Bible only supports indentured servitude, but I'll point out that I think indentured servitude pretty damn immoral as well, because there's no good reason to think that it's going to be equitably enforced. Second of all, it specifically says owning people as property that you can pass on to your kids. It also says that you can beat your slaves as long as they don't die within a day or two. Now, it says you must buy your slaves from the heathen who surround you. These people aren't people that owe you money. These are slaves. That's an explicit endorsement of the slave trade. Buy your slaves from the heathen around you. And then there are specific rules for what you can do about enslaving your own fellow Jews. And by the way, all of these rules only allow Jews to own slaves, because if you try to enslave a Jew, then you get plagues.
Okay. Well,
you have been sold some stuff that is not consistent with what the Bible actually says. This is a common apologetic tactic. It is an attempt to soften what the scriptures actually say, and you haven't bothered to look into it because you're just accepting whatever they feed you at that Christian school.
That's not what I'm doing, but I'm just
okay.
To further give foundation to my idea, I'm going to say, what the hell was I going to say?
Hey, does Jesus...
what do you believe about the end of... So what happens after this life? So do you guys believe, like, the world's going to end, the universe is going to end, right?
Well, the current model, I'm pretty sure, shows heat death eventually, yeah.
Eventually heat death, yeah.
Okay. So...
Well, let me backtrack a second since we just answered that. Are you aware of Jesus making any comments at all about slaves?
Not sure. I believe so.
Do you happen to know what he might have said? Like, hey, slavery is wrong? No, he didn't say that. He said, slaves, obey your masters.
Yes.
The only good thing you could tell a slave is to free themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, go on with your next question about the end of the universe or whatever.
Why do you guys have any sense of morality if you guys just believe that at the end everything's going to be destroyed?
What difference does it make if at the end everything's going to be destroyed? Okay, so I've got a car. Eventually it's going to end up in a junkyard. Does that mean it's of no value to me right now?
Well, there's some hope because you believe that you're going to get another car.
No, I'm actively using the car right now. It's of use to me now. It's of benefit now. The fact that it's going to end up in a junkyard someday doesn't make it useless now, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so the fact that the universe and life is going to end, the fact that I'm going to die doesn't make this day unvaluable, does it? Right now.
No, it
doesn't. So we agree that this day is valuable right now to me, right?
Yes, get there.
Sure. So since I have to share space with a bunch of other people, it's probably in my best interest to take a good look at what benefits me and what benefits everybody and what harms us, and to work with other people to try to create the best now and the best future that I possibly can, because I'm planning on living beyond today, right?
Yes.
What more do you need?
I guess you've made a valid point, but...
I'd highly recommend you go ahead and hit Google, and while this is a bit self-promotional, Google superiority of secular morality, and you'll find a big talk I gave outlining how to build a secular moral system, and how a secular moral system is in fact the only moral system, and that religions don't have a moral system. They make pronouncements about morality. And I'd also take a look at the Euthyphro dilemma. The idea that is something moral because God's commanded, or do the gods command it because it's moral? And actually it originally began as pious, but it works for morality too. If something is only moral because God says so, then tomorrow God could say that rape and murder are moral, and that would make it true. Well, that's obviously flawed. And if God only says that rape and murder are immoral because they're already immoral, then what do we need a God for? He's just a messenger. There's nothing about that God that has any bearing on whether or not rape and murder are immoral. There's a lot of big topics out there, and I got a bunch of people waiting on the line, so I don't want to... You're welcome to call back, and you can email tv@atheist-community.org, and we'll be happy to take more questions. But we got 4 lines and people waiting, and there's only 20 minutes left, so...
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for the call,
Thank you
Aaron.
for your time.
Thanks. Actually, I'm glad we had somebody 16 years old who's obviously raised in a very Christian environment who's calling the show to talk about this stuff, because that's actually the part about Explore God that I think is very valuable for people.
And I point out that I get a lot of email from teenagers, and I am always reluctant to engage too much.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to necessarily be pissing off anybody's parents and getting into fights about whether or not I'm unduly influencing their kids. So the big thing is, and we got several emails from people saying, "Oh, my parents are making me go to church."
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Go, take lots of notes, ask lots of questions. If you ask too many questions, they may stop making you go. But it can't hurt you to take notes, because the more you understand about this, the better you're going to be able to have communications with people who don't understand it, which is 90% of the Christian community doesn't understand what they believe or why.
Yes. Now think about if you're in this situation.
I made up that statistic, by the way.
Yeah. Start thinking about this problem that you have. Think like a social scientist. So you're now an anthropologist or a sociologist, and you are studying the Christian tribe in their native environment. Okay? If you were in that position somewhere,
you can't go into their native environment until you're 18 or 21 in some places.
So if you were, in doing field work or something as an anthropologist, you wouldn't be trying to avoid some tribe in their native environment. You'd be actively looking for this experience. So embrace it that way. Like Matt said, take a notebook. Take lots of notes.
Yeah, and, I know some people, oh, it's boring, I hate it, it's whatever. Literally today, and I don't necessarily know that I believe this email, but there was one that came in, and somebody's 18 and going to college, and their parents are going to buy them a house near the university if only they'll go to church once a week. And I was like, I put out a tweet right away saying, if any rich Christians want to buy me a house to go to their church once a week, Beth and I will be there dressed to the nines. Okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm 18 and I'm worried about being indoctrinated. Are you kidding me? You're kind of past where, if you cannot actually go to church and sit there and not be indoctrinated at 18, we need some other work.
Well, and if you're old enough to worry about being indoctrinated, you probably are not going to be indoctrinated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Indoctrination relies on the fact that you don't tend to know that it's going on, or that it's even a thing sometimes. But